Nigel is the canting hypocrite.
But he would have to take difficult decisions in government.
Nobody in this country.
And people would hate that.
Oh, of course you have to take decisions in government. That's the way.
And then maybe being a bloke down the pub isn't so popular
That wasn't why Boris... It wasn't that he had to make decisions. It's that he was a canting hypocrite.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Division Bell. This week we've got a very special guest, Gawain Towler, the former Nigel Farage spinner. We're going to be talking the rise of reform. We're going to be talking, is Nigel Farage fit to be Prime Minister? And is this the end of the Tory party? My name's Calgie.
I'm Lizzy Buchan.
And this is The Division Bell. We're joined now by Gawain Towler, who, aside from Nigel Farage, is probably the most long-serving person behind UKIP, the Brexit Party, reform. I just thought we'd start by you sort of talk us through your CV.
Farage came to me in the pub one day at 2004 and said, "You're a journalist, you're a Eurosceptic, you'd take the piss, will you do it for me?" And to that extent, I started working at the end of 2004, and then worked in the European Parliament until about 2009, came over for the then election, and then stayed to run the group press team in London, and this, I think, is my third firing.
The comeback king, as we
comeback king. It's an unfishable turd.
So, what is Nigel Farage really like?
Fun. It's the bloke that you meet, and the bloke you see in the public domain is very much similar to the fellow he is. I mean, you know that when he's talking to ordinary people, civilian citizens. He listens. He actually doesn't say a great deal. There are a couple of words to prompt, but he listens, and that is why, and that is how, I guess, he's maintained an ability to comprehend the zeitgeist, to get that feeling. Why he learns. He learns a lot. He's interested in what drives people and motivates people, and so it's one of the reasons he's often ahead of the public curve. I think what he's always felt, that he's in the centre of public opinion. He may not be in the centre of received opinion. He may not be centre of political opinion, but he's retained a level of being in the centre of public opinion over a long period of time.
And do you think he's the same? Has he changed much in the 20 years that you've worked for him? Has he changed his views, or is he?
I don't think his broad views have changed. I think there's always been a clash in his views, which is the sort of the gut, laissez-faire, very liberal in lifestyle, very liberal in social ways, but equally liberal in economics and trading and things of this sort. But there is a clash of that against the sort of the stated policy, the stated slogan of country, family, community, that it is no doubt that globalisation, which is generally a good thing, has caused a great deal of pain for people in many communities in this country. One is able to say, yes, I believe in laissez-faire life, but at the same time understand certain things have to be protected for the good of all. And thus you see something like the nationalisation of the last remaining steel works as something that goes counter to the broad belief system. He's not a global citizen. He is a British citizen, and his first interest is the people of this country.
Some people might call that opportunism, though. I mean, the interest in the nationalisation of British steel.
Some people might call it opportunism.
He was suddenly saying, "Oh, I love the unions, up Arthur Scargill, all this sort of thing."
He's always been a believer in joining.
Mm-hmm.
He feels the British people are joiners, and it could be the Royal British Legion, it could be the Rotarians, it could be the Conservative. No, it's not the Conservative Party.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I'm sorry, wrong. But you know what I mean. These are organisations and institutions that exist independently of the state. The trade unions are another example. While the trade unions cared about their members' interests, they were good things. And when you see union leaders starting to talk in ways that suggest that they're thinking about their members' interests. For example, Gary Smith is now saying that net zero is very damaging to workers in this country because it sends jobs out abroad while it doesn't have any impact on the global climate CO2 production. So he's saying, no, that's bad. Good. Great, Gary. I'm delighted you're actually showing some interest in your members here in this country. Now talk about migration. And I'm not saying this is not universal support of the GMB, trust me. But
I was going to say, Gary Smith will be so disappointed.
I know, but actually, I suspect Gary Smith, it would be interesting if he polled his own members to see how many vote for us. I would guess that there's a surprisingly large amount. And indeed, if he's going to pay a political subscription to a political party, maybe he should be splitting into different political parties these days.
You talked about, obviously, where Nigel Farage's politics sit in the system. And I think for many years he's been the sort of ultimate political outsider in the sense that he has been able to force the Conservative Party in certain directions. He's changed the public discourse. Reform now have 5 MPs in control of a number of English councils. Correct. So it's suddenly part of the establishment. It's got to perform within those boundaries.
Yeah.
How is that going to work?
Great, isn't it?
But how is that going to stand up to reality?
By doing the job.
How do you think they're going to deliver on these quite different political ideas?
I think you'll find that the view from Westminster, the view from London, is they're a bunch of hairy-ass loons, but they're not. They're decent people who want to do a good job for their communities. And if we have the ambition to be the government of this country, which we do, then we have to prove ourselves. And how do we prove ourselves? It's by winning things like councils and doing the job. For the first time, I think, in my memory, you're going to have political journalists in the lobby interested in what happens in a town hall in Northern England. Why? Because they want to see us fail. That's why. And I suspect they will be sorely disappointed.
Do you think this... Talking of sort of promises meeting reality, one of Reform's biggest local election pledges was around rooting out waste and this sort of Doge-style thing. Now, obviously, the biggest costs to a council are things like social housing.
The statutory obligations.
Those statutory obligations. Lots of councils,
80%.
The majority of money is statutory
80%.
obligations.
Yeah, we're aware.
So will this policy, do you think, actually affect people's lives, or is this going to be sort of cutting off bits at the margin?
No,
savings?
but it may be large enough to improve the services delivered. I think that, yes, 80% is statutory, absolutely, and social care and welfare and various other things, youth, old people, SEND, and et cetera, et cetera. I suspect that there's more waste in that area than we currently admit. I think some of those contracts should be looked at very carefully. That doesn't mean that the job isn't done, but I think there's an awful lot of fat there. If everything is driven by a diversity and inclusion agenda and the net zero agenda, you will see a great deal of waste that's just done for virtue.
But how much evidence do you have that councils are spending a lot of money and time on that when actually most people are just screaming for them to fix bins and social
Please fix
care?
the bins. So please don't teach me that the bins have to be filled with plastic cover rubber, this, that and the other. It's done by mixed race, whatever. Stop doing that and just fix the bins. Sort out the roads.
But do you know that they're actually doing that, or is that just
yes. I'm sorry, I don't have the evidence right in front of me at this conversation. But yes, I've seen the training programs. I've seen the promotion system. I've seen in the public sector. Yes, it is happening.
But one of the first things that was done after the local elections was an announcement about what flags could be. Is that not a waste of time?
No, it's cheap as chips.
Is that
take any time at all.
People are screaming for on the doorsteps.
It's certainly not what people are screaming on the doorsteps, but it is a statement of intent that doesn't cost anything.
Do you think it helps Reform that 80% of all council spending is they're told what to spend it on by the government? Do you think there'd be an element of what the SNP have done in Scotland, where you can sort of take credit for the good things that happen, but you can blame Westminster for the
play opposite?
I get your point. I hope they don't.
Do you think it might be a reform policy of sort of to reform local government?
A reform policy is to blame the government. No, I hope that's not the case. I'm not privy to that sort of instruction. I do hope that's not the case. Now, I think on a national level, if we were to get into Westminster, if we were to get into government, our policy for a number of years has been to remove much of the social care from local government and bring it back to the NHS and bring social care and the NHS budget together. We think it is wrong that the government keep on forcing local councils. Why are half of them bankrupt? It's because being forced to do things that we believe should be national responsibility, not local responsibility. Our ambition nationally is to take those responsibilities from local government and bring them into the national government responsibilities, because the fiduciary duties of local councils are almost impossible. The only things you can cut are libraries, only things are parks, the only things you can cut are things that actually people like. I don't think the electors are stupid. I think they understand there's only so much that can be done at local government level, because there is only so much that can be done at local government level. We will be held to account, of course. We will make mistakes, of course. There will be some weirdos, naturally. That's the way things are. You look at any council over the last 20 years without reform people in there. Some pretty strange people there. If we have the pretensions of being the government of this country, we have to be able to do the job.
Let's talk about the rise of reform. I'm particularly interested, if you've been with Nigel for 20 years and you've seen, few other politicians would have had the energy to keep going. But it seems there's been a real breakthrough in the last couple of years. I remember back to the UKIP days, there was a sort of 15% ceiling, nowhere in Scotland, so why now? Is it because he's improved, or is it because our politicians have made things even worse?
Well, can I introduce you to three people? Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch. Oh, and Ed Davey. He's lucky in his enemies, isn't he? The mood in the country is hardening. They are deeply disappointed. They are appalled at the failures of the last 14 years. They look at what Labour has done with things like winter fuel. And stuff of that sort, and they go, why do we do that? I was surprised quite how impactful things had been at the local elections. I really was. I was betting on 4 councils. We got 10, and that I think was far more nice. I was top limit 400 councillors. We got 674, and I think there was a pollster that suggested something like 400 councillors. Everybody said, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. There's no way." Oh dear, they got 674. The mood is hardening. Talking to a Tory MP a couple of nights ago, next year the council elections are Labour facing, not Tory facing, with the counties, the shires, and they're saying, yeah, we expect you to take Coventry, we expect you to take large chunks of the Labour heartland at council level, and there's every good reason to think we can. Is it because Farage is better? No. I think the milieu we're working in is far worse. I think the slogan that the party came up with, the sort of Britain is broken, just don't walk outside your front door and you know that actually, in many ways, nothing works. So that chimes with the public mood.
Are you focusing your attention on Labour voters? Because obviously you've eaten up a lot of Conservative support. Is that where the focus is, or are you just, going for everything?
I think we do what we do and see. And basically, why would we focus there rather than there? Why not just focus on who we are? And if we do it well, we'll get both. If the polling continues the way it's going, and there is the problem of momentum, and how do you maintain a momentum when the momentum's been so extraordinary up until now? We've got 4 more years. I mean, where do we hit? 70%? How does this continue? I don't know. But if that momentum continues and you see Tory polling under 20% for 6 months, that's dispiriting for them, deeply dispiriting for them. And it doesn't matter how you will see a continual leaching. I mean, this morning, while I was standing downstairs in your lobby, I was talking to somebody who's a Tory councillor and wants to defect. I'm putting him in touch with our defection team.
I love that you have a defection team.
Well, yeah, because have you seen how many defections there are? And that's not going to stop. And currently it's at local council level. But trust me.
Do you think you're going to get some MPs?
Of course we're going to get MPs. It happens every time. But when you see a party that is being hammered so very badly, how many MPs? I mean, one of the polling projections I saw, I think they get 70. The question is, do we want them? Do we want them? I don't necessarily think we do. There will be some who we're happy with, but there'll be many. And there will come a time. It's like, right, guys, make your mind up. When we select somebody for this constituency, we will not sack them just because you think you're important and you've defected. You better go, if this is a decision you're going to make it. On election night last year in July, how many Tory MPs were sitting there saying, looking at the results in Ashfield, Lee Anderson stormed in, thinking, why on earth didn't I do it myself? And so they've got track record here. There are people that have seen it before and they didn't do it. And okay, have some courage. Have some courage. As that statue in Parliament Square, courage calls to courage everywhere. It is brave to make that stand. It is. But if you believe in something, do it.
There is a problem for you, isn't there? If you take on 50 Tory MPs, then
no,
I
would be surprised if there's more than 5 that we'd be happy with.
Really? Interesting. Yeah.
Look at them. Look at their track record. Look what they did in office. Why would we want to be associated with that? There are some good people. There are good people in every party. Lib Dem. There are good people in every party.
That guide dog's quite cute.
But the point is that I personally, and this is not the party, but personally, I think we'd take about 2 to 3% of their peers, about 5 to 10% of their MPs, about 20 to 30% of their councillors, about 80% of their membership, and I think we've got that already.
A lot could happen in 4 years, and actually, is there an argument to be made about what happens when voters really start to get to know reform?
Because more of them will vote for us.
Well, you say that, but I mean, economists have warned that the manifesto could blow a sort of
I was seeing the city's already decided there's going to be a run on the pound in 4 years' time. Come on, guys.
But but on a serious note, do you think that you can defend yourself from
the day after the election? Farage tore up the contract and said this isn't good enough. It was written before he arrived. This isn't good enough. He accepted that, and we're working on it. You've got the new think tank that's working on things. There's other people. They're talking to a lot of intelligent and able people about how to improve matters. And 100%, we're aware. We don't want to go into government to ruin the country. That's not our purpose.
Reassuring.
So, but to have this sort of stuff from the city that I read yesterday to us, and like 4 years out, and they're trying to, yeah, right, whatever. The point is, we threaten politically. We threaten not just the cosy establishment of Whitehall and the quangocracy. We threaten everything.
There's a lot of conversation about Nigel Farage being Prime Minister based on very little evidence at the moment.
It's amazing, isn't it? He's the most experienced and long-serving politician in this country. He's
took him 6 times to win a seat.
Yeah. You know, in America, the average
he did get there
the average millionaire has been bankrupt 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, the
so
US
president's
been
you learn
bankrupt several times.
You learn. Anybody who thinks I've heard senior Tories say the best thing is that he smokes and drinks, so he's probably going to die before then. If that's the best they've got, our best chance of winning this election is if Farage has a hernia or something. But if that's your strategy, waiting for him to pop his clogs, seems to be a bit threadbare.
But it is the sort of latest iteration of the cult of Farage reform, isn't it? If he's not there, it's nothing.
No, it's certainly something. You can't dismiss the fact that Tice took it to 12% from nowhere. You can't dismiss that.
But Tice isn't becoming the next Prime Minister.
No, but at the same time, you think there wasn't a structure, absolutely, but there were some very keen, passionate. We did put almost a full slate of Westminster candidates up for that election. We were developing policy. It wasn't perfect, but we were developing that. We were building. We were absolutely building before Nigel re-entered the fray. Nigel provided whiz-bang, absolutely. But I think it's a convenient fiction. It's all about a cult of Nigel. The party exists. Obviously, he is the most impressive politician that I can recall in my adult life. And he has that ability to reach parts in a sort of Carlsberg way that others don't. And I think everybody thought we've got a great air war. We're really good at the media side of things. We've got this ability to cut through, but they don't have a ground game. And I would suggest that what happened in Runcorn, and I would suggest what happened in the councils the other week, show we do have a ground game. And they are committed, they're passionate, they're hardworking, and yes, of course. Nigel is a figurehead like very few people have seen in our political lifetime. But what he represents is something that is felt by millions of people in this country. And so if the Tories are right and he kills off, it kills over, then I suspect, yes, it would have a deleterious impact. It would knock our polling, of course it would, but it would knock it back to, say, 20. It wouldn't knock it back to 10. Because we're talking about a mood of millions of people in the country. You walk in Runcorn, you go and campaign. When we were campaigning in the council estate of Runcorn, people were coming out of their homes and coming to our activists rather than us having to knock on their door. That the mood has changed.
What do you think he'd be like as Prime Minister?
Interesting. I think there's something more 19th century about him than 20th century about him. I think that one of the things he gets that in as a campaigning figure is very effective, that might be more problematic as a governing figure, is he doesn't care what you think. The problem with most politicians is they want everybody to love them, and that's silly because they won't. There hasn't been an election in my lifetime where more than 40-odd% has voted for the governing party. 60% don't like you and never will. So there's no point in trying to appeal to people. You just won't. But in governance, one has to step outside the bounds of your own personal belief systems. Nigel's very clubbable. People get on with him. You go to the terrace, he doesn't just talk to the four other Reform MPs. He is very clubbable. He'll talk. He doesn't care who you are. He's happy to talk and happy to discuss. That, I think, is a sign that he's much more collegiate than maybe he's perceived to be. But he's not going to stop being him. So he is the consummate campaigner. Is he the consummate administrator? Probably not. Can he bring together a team that can? I'm pretty certain he can.
I think the experience thing is going to be really tricky, isn't it? I mean, it's not just Nigel. You're going to need 20 people who can be cabinet ministers, 100 people who can be competent ministers, and no one has ever had any government experience before. I don't think we'd ever see anything like that. Maybe when the Labour Party won in the 1920s, but it'd be a shock to the Whitehall system.
It will be a shock to the Whitehall system. I suspect the Whitehall system rather deserves a shock. I truly believe that the offer we will be making to the country in 4 years' time will be the most diverse, the most experienced, the most knowledgeable in background, in career, in their personal life experience of any political party for over 100 years. They haven't spent years sucking up to senior people in political parties to try and get themselves on selection committees and selected. We haven't had the time. We've only been around for 4 years. So you can't do that. And
hopefully you'll have fixed your vetting system by then.
I think the vetting system is largely in place. No vetting system works fully. It just doesn't, and it's a fool's game to pretend that there's a perfect vetting system. There isn't. So as best we can. Of course.
And if you're putting yourself forward as like a professionalised offer, you don't want to be in a situation like there have been there.
Right.
You're having to drop candidates all the time.
You're absolutely right. You don't want candidates who drop constituents. You don't want candidates who are charged with all sorts of nasty things like Dan Norris's. You don't want candidates who are charged for going to the Groucho Club and doing dodgy things. No, you're right. You're right. Because we need to learn from the professional political parties about how to vet your candidates.
I would say I've done more stories about reform candidates drops than any other part.
Our vetting system before the general election, actually we closed our vetting department down in around about January, February, or actually earlier than that, because we were desperate to try and get candidates through. So whilst we did some level of vetting, it wasn't very good. Even so, despite that, I think it was less than 5% of our candidates were dropped for dodgy things. It wasn't that bad. By the name reform, we all talk about reform of people, and people can. People can, and we need to trust people more than hold everybody as everybody. Looking at everybody. If we want people of talent, if you want people who can bring this country forward, if you want all that, then the demand that they all some sort of square technocratic grey box with no character, with no humanity, with no normality. Do we want to be governed by that bunch of boring wazzocks? No, we don't. We want humanity, and humanity has error. There are bumps and lumps in all of us, and this demand that they are all so bloody perfect. They're not. People aren't. How can you represent the complicated mess that is humanity and British humanity if you've never ever made an error, if you've never made a mistake?
Do you think the public are more open to that than they're given credit for?
Yes. The people of this country, by and large, aren't a bunch of Puritan idiots. People make mistakes. They accept that. People make errors. People aren't perfect. What they don't like is hypocrisy. Why is it always the cover-up that's the problem? Most people fall not for what they've done, but for trying to pretend they didn't do it. And that's what the people of this country hate. Look, Nigel, he smokes, he drinks. He has been known to be not entirely faithful. He's never pretended to be anything other than who he is. He doesn't pretend to be perfect. He doesn't parade his uxoriousness when he goes out and campaigning. He doesn't. He doesn't pretend to be perfect. And that's one of the reasons he cuts through, because he's like us. So do I think people in this country are a bit more forgiving than they're given credit for? Absolutely.
Quite a few of the things you've said are things that could be said about Boris Johnson. I mean, you even use the Carlsberg sort of comparison that Boris Johnson was very popular for a long time, but then he was Prime Minister, then he did things that were unpopular, and then the public started
because he's
to
a canting
hate
hypocrite.
But that same thing could happen to
Nigel is
Nigel.
a canting hypocrite.
But he would have to take difficult decisions in government.
Nobody in this country.
And people would hate that.
Oh, of course you have to take decisions in government. That's the way.
And then maybe being a bloke down the pub isn't so popular.
That wasn't why Boris was lost that. It wasn't that he had to make decisions. It's that he was a canting hypocrite. There is not anybody in this country, as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm wrong, who has done well in their life by believing a single word that Boris Johnson said. He may be funny, he might be able to quote Virgil at you in the original, and that's great. And he can go into Working Man's Club and probably talk about Seneca and get on very well with people. But he's a hypocrite.
But there are some people who would say they're cut from the same cloth.
No, I mean, Boris is cut from very, very fine Italian wool of quite a light weight, and Nigel's cut from worsted. He didn't want to do it. The famous comment, do I want to spend every Friday night in Clacton for the next 5 years? Well,
yes,
on balance, despite the intrusion into his life, despite the reduction in his salary, and I know he's doing well, but I don't regret that he's doing well. I think he deserves it. All that extra hassle, running a political party when everybody's got your phone number. God. It's hard work.
Do you think that 2029 is going to be Nigel's last chance?
Don't know. Could be the country's. I mean, I truly believe that the people who are on our side of the argument look at the current government and the last government and say, if we don't do something now, what's left? What's left if we keep on prosecuting these strange agendas? What's left of our country?
Do you think he's got the energy to do another 10 years if he doesn't quite make the finish line?
Oh, he's got the energy, all right. I don't know where he bottles it. Probably Boysdale's. But yeah, I have never seen anybody with that amount of energy. He's all got these kids working for him, and they flag and collapse before he does.
So Nigel Farage has often talked about his relationship with Donald Trump over the years, but we sort of saw him going out a lot to the US last year, and then now Donald Trump seems to be quite chummy with Keir Starmer. How does Farage see the relationship with Trump at the moment?
I think Nigel's relationship is not just with Trump, it's also with quite a few people in his cabinet. He's built that up over the years. Keir Starmer's the Prime Minister. Trump is the President. That is the relationship that matters. And if Starmer does a good job, good. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Mandelson made it very clear that he thinks that being engaged with Farage is a good thing if you want to get on with the broader cabinet, not just Trump himself. Honestly, I think Starmer's done quite a good job when it comes with the trade stuff. And one has to be credit where credit's due. He fancies somebody else. This is not a problem because that somebody else is the Prime Minister of our country. We want the best for our country. And Farage had said that after the election, before Trump won his election. He was, look, I'll do anything I can because it helps our country. That's what matters, not my personal relationship. And that personal relationship continues. There's this mad idea that he's stupid. He's not stupid. You don't win 2 presidencies if you're thick or mad. You just don't. And we have this amazing European condescension. Oh, the Americans, they're very foolish and they have more Nobel Prizes than the rest of us put together. They are bright, able people, and we are fools if we try to condescend to them, particularly when they've been providing our defence for many years. And stuff of this sort. It just seems mad. So, no, that's not a problem at all. Crack on. Do it well.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Division Bell. Follow us on socials and see you next time.